So very recently, one of you guys made an incredible observation on my review, on my unboxing video of the CR7 Euro 2020 Superflies. Now, this is something I hadn't considered for many years because it seemed the days of this particular problem were over. What is the problem? Well, if you go back, way back, some of the older Vapors, if they were made in, for example, Bosnia, they were a better quality boot than the ones that came out of countries in Asia. But it seemed like over time that discrepancy and that difference got smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where it was basically completely unnoticeable. Didn't matter where your boots were from, they felt the same. However, one of you guys pointed out that the collar difference, the collar size difference on these two boots that I mentioned in the video might actually be down to where these boots were made. This might not be a design choice, and it might be about which factory made the boots. So today, let's have a look. Were these made in different factories? And does it make a difference to the boots overall? And should you be really pushing to try and get your boots from one country or another by looking at the label? Guys, my name's James. This of course is BootWizard Boot Reviews. Now let's start by looking at the boxes. Were they made in different countries? If we start off with this one here, so we start with the box for the CR7 boots, you'll see that these were made in China. And then we grab the box for the Dragonfly boots. These have both been reviewed on the channel, so do remember to get subscribed to pick up this kind of content. Down the bottom here, these were made in Bosnia. So both of these boots fundamentally made in different places, but that shouldn't mean the boots are different, right? Well, you'd hope not. First thing to note, and it's a really tiny thing, the boxes are different sizes. This box for the CR7 Mercurials is a different size to the box for the Dragonflies. They're both exactly the same size. There's no real reason for this to happen. Is it because of the country location? I couldn't actually tell you because I do only have two pairs of the current Mercurial line. Kind of need a third pair to see which one it matches up with. But there you go. Different size boxes. Nobody cares. Move on to the boots. We'll start by quickly going back to that original change that I noticed where those two collars are different heights. Now, I assumed that because this was a CR7 edition, Nike had actually reduced the collar height because CR7, Ronaldo himself, has a lower collar. Now, this isn't something Nike have ever done before on CR7 signature editions. You always find that they're the same height as the retail model, and it's just Ronaldo that has a custom variation. The old Superfly 7 kind of had that lower Ronaldo style collar anyway, but again, that was standard retail. This is a CR7 boot with a collar that is definitely shorter than the retail one by about the width of the stitching just here. So that again on the top. Now that's a fairly small amount for it to be different, and these don't seem to be quite as small as the CR7 collar. So is this a deliberate choice? And if it is, Nike really haven't made a big deal out of it, and it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. So why do it at all? Because this is an entirely different manufacturing process just to take off, quite literally, that much material, which definitely leads into this idea that these were just simply made slightly differently, and this is a really big visual change. Now, a good way of comparing boots is usually by the weight. So we are going to weigh these, but you do have to consider that different colorways, different patterns that are on boots, they do have slight differences anyway. Slight grams here and there because of colors, because of the way things are dyed, because of maybe a type of lace. There's a whole host of things. And also on top of that, with this particular weigh-in, these are brand new and unworn. These have been a boot that I've used quite a lot over the last few months since they were released, and that's definitely going to have an impact because of course the stud plate, the sole plate is going to get worn, and that's going to take off weight. And there's a tiny bit of additional grass on that one, which is going to add weight. Hopefully it all balances out. All right, CR7s on the scales. These are both exactly the same size. These come in at 195 grams. Let's throw on the dragonflies, and the dragonflies come in at 193 grams. So there's nothing in it really. Like, there's nothing to say that one would be different than the other. This definitely has a smaller collar, but this one weighs less. But I've worn it. We can draw zero conclusions from this weigh-in. Next up, in hand. Do these boots actually feel any different anywhere? Now, on the inside, the lining, everything like that, it's really hard to kind of find a difference in there. And honestly, for me, they're the same. There's no way of spotting a difference there at all. What about the outside, the upper? Well, again, there's a caveat to this, because this boot, the CR7 one, 100% feels a little bit stiffer than my Dragonfly boot. And there's probably two reasons for this. The first one being that these have just been worn. The more you wear these Superflies, the more you wear the Superflies, the softer they get because of this synthetic style material. And these are actually quite soft, quite broken in, and these ones are brand new, so they're not. They're that little bit stiffer. Also, the way that the upper has been designed, the different color combinations, the way that there's more of a graphic on this could have an impact. This could mean that that upper top coating material is slightly thicker, and you might be able to notice a difference there. But in my hand, without question, these feel stiffer. I think a lot of that is down to playtime. So again, we have a fairly inconclusive test. The Flyknit itself, again, feels slightly different, but this could be due to wear. This is just a little bit more elastic. It's just that little bit more spring back in it, and it just feels a bit tighter. And that's kind of noticeable on feet as well, whereas this one is just that little bit more flexible, and honestly, it makes the boots a little easier to get on. But again, I've worn these, and that's definitely going to be something that happens the more you wear them. So I can draw no conclusions here either, but stick with me. This is all not for naught. That sounds about right. I do have something that does feel different on these, and it's coming up next. I'll quickly mention sole plates feel identical, so there's no real anything to discuss there. However, on feet, there is a difference. Again, we can put this down to things being worn, but I'm not sure about this one. It's the sizing. Now, these made in Bosnia Dragonflies, they seem to run slightly longer than these made in China CR7s. And honestly, I don't know whether that's because it fits my foot better, because it is that tiny bit longer, or whether the material that I spoke about earlier being that bit softer. These are actually much more comfortable for me. I enjoy wearing these. However, it is noticeable when I slip these CR7s on that they don't feel quite as nice. They don't feel quite as comfortable on my feet. And I can remember what it was like putting the Dragonflies on the first time. I found them quite comfortable to wear, and I haven't found that with the CR7s. So there is potentially a slight size or kind of width change here that comes on the China-made boots. It could all be in my head, but without question, these just seem to fit my foot better. And for two boots that are exactly the same, that pretty much shouldn't be the case. And I don't think this is down to these being worn in. I genuinely believe that these are a tiny bit shorter. And that tiny bit doesn't make a huge difference. It's not going to force me to change the sizing or to buy different boots or anything like that. And honestly, it's probably barely noticeable unless you're looking for it, which is exactly what I'm doing here, of course, because one of you lovely people pointed out that there might be a difference based on country. So yeah, like, it does feel a little different. The graphics are probably doing it, but I feel like the toe box also looks slightly different. I feel like if I put them back to back, there even is a tiny visual difference, but it's so small. It's probably in my head, but I'm confident that I can feel it on feet. So, what does this all mean? Does this mean that you should be trying to buy the made in Bosnia boots over the made in China boots? Or are the made in China boots actually the better option because they might even run a little truer to size? For me, the answer is simple and twofold. The first point is that it doesn't matter where you buy the boots from, you're very unlikely to find a difference. There doesn't seem to be a quality difference from one factory to the other, and essentially whichever one you pick up, you're going to get that same vapor or superfly feeling that you expect from the current generation, and I would not be concerned about it at all. However, on the flip side of that, I definitely think that there is a difference, whether it be small, whether it be big, a tiny 2 millimeters, 1 millimeter on the end of the boot, a tiny 1 or 2 millimeters in the length of the collar. There does genuinely seem to be some minuscule differences here, but they shouldn't really inform your buying decisions because it's not going to make the blindest bit of difference. Continue to put your comments, your theories down below, because of course I reply to as many of you as possible, but at the same time, sometimes you guys have an absolute belter and you can actually inform what comes onto the Boot Wizard channel. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, or any of my reviews, get subscribed and of course like the video as well. But that's all from me here at Boot Wizard today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good one, and we'll see you soon.